Almost everybody watching this was raised to never waste food. Cook once, eat twice. Your mother did it, you do it. And honestly, it is one of the smarter habits you have. What nobody ever sat you down and explained is that the second time you heat a food, you are running a completely different chemistry experiment than the first time. Same pan, same food, entirely different reactions. And 4 specific foods, warmed up a specific way, build compounds that the World Health Organization's own cancer agency has formally classified as probable human carcinogens. Let me be careful and precise with you right now, because there is a lot of nonsense on the internet about this. Leftovers are fine, leftovers are good. The difference between making those compounds and not making them is almost always the dial on your stove and about 90 seconds of your time. And before you click off because you think this is another do not microwave anything scare video, stay with me, because the real answer flips what you have been told. Your microwave is actually the hero of this story. I will get to exactly why at the end. First, one idea that explains everything. Because once you have it, you can work out the answer for any food in your refrigerator. When you cook a food the first time, heat does exactly what you want. It breaks tough structures apart. It unfolds proteins so your gut can digest them. It releases nutrients and it kills bacteria. That is the entire point of cooking, and it works. Then the food cools, and while it sits in that container overnight, it changes. The proteins have already been unfolded. The starch recrystallizes into a tighter structure. The fats have already been partly broken open. And bacterial spores that survived the first cooking wake up. So when you put that food back on the heat is landing on something that has already been altered once. Different material, different reactions. That second heat does 3 things. The first heat never did. 1, it creates. It builds compounds that were not in the food when you cooked it and were not there when you put it away. 2, it compounds. The first heat starts the damage, and the second heat works on what the first one already broke open. So it runs faster and further with every pass. 3, it cannot undo. Heat kills bacteria, but heat does not destroy the poisons some bacteria leave behind. So a reheat can look and smell and taste like it fixed the problem while the actual problem is still sitting right there on the plate. Creates compounds. Cannot undo. Every one of the 4 foods today gets scored against those 3. And every single one has a fix that costs you nothing. Nobody here is asking you to throw away food. The lever you hold in your own hand is the method. How hot, how fast you cooled it, how many times, and what is on the pan. Food number 1, and this is the one that surprises people most, spinach. And with it the whole dark, leafy green family, kale, chard, arugula, beet greens. I will say the good part first because it is true and it matters. Raw or cooked, fresh and eaten, spinach is one of the best things you can put in your body. Iron, folate, vitamin K, lutein for your eyes. Greens are one of the real reasons a plant-heavy diet lowers blood pressure. I want you eating them. Now the chemistry. Leafy greens pull nitrate out of the soil and store it in the leaf. Nitrate on its own is harmless. It is the same compound in beetroot that your blood vessels convert into nitric oxide, which relaxes and opens them. What changes? It is warm storage. Bacteria on the leaf convert nitrate into nitrite, a much more reactive form, and they do that fastest in the temperature window between about 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So a pan of spinach left on the stovetop for 2 hours or a spinach dish sitting out on the counter after dinner is quietly building nitrite the entire time. Then you reheat it. In the presence of heat and protein, nitrite combines to form compounds called nitrosamines. And nitrosamines are one of the most heavily studied classes of chemical carcinogen we have. The International Agency for Research on Cancer classified nitrate and nitrite ingested under these conditions as a probable human carcinogen. The cancers with the most consistent evidence are in the digestive tract, stomach, esophagus, colon. One reheated spinach omelette is not a diagnosis. This is a small exposure repeated over decades, which happens to be exactly how most diet-linked cancer risk actually accumulates. The fix is completely free. Cook the amount of greens you are going to eat. If you have leftovers, get them into the refrigerator within an hour, then eat them cold. Cold spinach in a salad the next day is completely fine. It keeps every bit of the nutrition and skips the second heat entirely. What makes this a problem is the warm hour on the counter and the second trip through the pan. Food number 2, rice. And this one has put people in hospital, which is a sentence I do not use loosely. Uncooked rice naturally carries the spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. A spore is the survival form of a bacterium, a seed with a hard shell built to survive heat. When you boil a pot of rice, you kill essentially everything else and the spores go straight through, untouched. Now the rice comes off the stove and sits on the counter. As it falls into that warm range, the spores germinate. They wake up. They multiply. And while they multiply, they release a toxin called cerulide. Cerulide is where this gets serious. It is heat stable. You can bring that rice back to a rolling boil the next day, kill every living bacterium, and the cerulide will be sitting there completely intact. This is well enough known in emergency medicine that it has a nickname, fried rice syndrome. The classic case is take-out rice left out overnight and fried up the following day. In a healthy 40-year-old, that means a miserable few hours of vomiting. After 60, with a thinner gut lining, and for many of you medications that lower your stomach's first line of defense, that same dose can mean a hospital visit. There is also a second, quieter problem with rice. When cooked rice cools, the starch recrystallizes. If you then blast that cold rice in a hot, dry pan, you are browning it. And browning starch at high dry heat produces a compound called acrylamide. The FDA has published formal guidance to the food industry on lowering it because of cancer concerns. The fix is straightforward. Get rice into the refrigerator within 1 hour of cooking. Spread it in a shallow container so it cools fast instead of staying warm in the middle of a deep pot. Eat it within 24 hours. Reheat it until it is steaming hot all the way through, not just on top. And reheat it once, one time only. There is no third night. Food number 3, the oil. The bottle you cook with and everything you already cooked in it. Vegetable oils high in polyunsaturated fat, sunflower, corn, soybean, and most of what gets sold as generic vegetable oil are chemically fragile at high heat. Those fats carry double bonds, and the double bonds are the weak points. Heat them past their limit and they break apart. And when they break, they release a family of compounds called aldehydes. You already know one aldehyde by name, formaldehyde. IARC classifies formaldehyde as group 1, carcinogenic to humans, the same category as tobacco smoke and asbestos. Another aldehyde that turns up in overheated oil is acrolein, the harsh smell that catches the back of your throat when oil burns. IARC moved acrolein into the probable human carcinogen group in 2021. Here is the reheating part. Heating the same oil again produces far more of these compounds on each pass. The first heating already damages the oil. The second heating works on oil that is already partly broken down, so it degrades faster and further. This is the clearest example of the compounds route anywhere, in your kitchen. And this is not only about saving used frying oil in a jar. When you take last night's stir fry or a pan of leftover chicken and drop it into a hot skillet, the oil already inside that food goes through the entire cycle again. You do not have to be saving old oil to be reheating oil. 3 fixes, all free. First, stop saving frying oil. Pour it out tonight. Second, when you warm any cooked dish in a pan, use low or medium heat, never high. Every reaction I have described today is temperature driven. Drop the temperature and the chemistry largely does not happen. Third, switch to extra virgin olive oil for stovetop cooking and reheating. It is mostly monounsaturated, meaning far fewer of those fragile double bonds. It carries its own antioxidants and holds up to heat considerably better than seed oils do, which is the reverse of what most people have been told. Food number 4, chicken, and with it every cooked animal protein, beef, pork, fish, even hard-boiled eggs. This is the one I care about most for a simple reason. It is the most reheated food on earth. You roast a chicken on Sunday and you are eating it Monday and Tuesday. And it is the only food on this list that hits all 3 roots at the same time. Start with creates. When you cook meat at high temperature, the amino acids and creatine inside the muscle react with each other and form compounds called heterocyclic aminase, or HCAs. They form on the surface in the browned and charred parts, and they form more the hotter and drier the cooking gets. The National Cancer Institute keeps a public fact sheet on exactly this. HCAs are mutagenic how? They directly damage DNA in laboratory testing. They cause tumors in animals. And population studies have linked high intake of well-done, pan-fried and grilled meat with cancers of the colon, pancreas and prostate. Now think about what reheating in a hot pan is actually doing. That surface already went through the browning reaction once. You put it back on high heat and you brown a surface that is already browned. You are running the HCA reaction a second time. Then compounds. The proteins in that chicken were already unfolded by the first cooking. Hit them again with intense dry heat and they oxidize further. Dry high heat is also the single biggest driver of advanced glycation end products, AGEs. Research from Mount Sinai found that the cooking method mattered more than the food itself. The same chicken, broiled or fried, carried many times the AGE load of that same chicken poached or stewed. AGEs drive inflammation and show up in research on vascular disease, kidney disease, and diabetic complications, and then cannot undo. Cooked chicken is one of the easiest foods in your refrigerator for bacteria to recolonize once it has cooled, and some bacteria produce toxins that are heat stable. Same story as the rice. You reheat to the right temperature, you kill every bacterium, and the toxin is still on the plate. So here is the single most useful sentence in this entire video. Low heat. A pan on medium-low, a splash of water or broth in the bottom, and a lid on top. You are steaming it back to temperature. Moist heat kept below the browning threshold, so the HCA reaction never runs. The AGEs do not form. The oil inside the meat does not degrade, and the food actually comes out better. It stays moist instead of turning into that dry, stringy, disappointing leftover chicken everybody knows. The habit to stop is cold cooked chicken thrown into a hot, dry skillet to crisp it back up. That is the worst reheating habit in the average kitchen, and it is also the most popular one. On storage, cooked chicken goes into the refrigerator within 2 hours of cooking, 1 hour on a hot day. Eat it within 3 to 4 days. Personally, I recommend 2 days because the official guidance assumes a refrigerator actually running at the right temperature, and most home refrigerators have never once been checked with a thermometer.